Law & Order has seen dozens of actors come and go since the original series debut in 1990, but departures haven't always been on the best terms. So what really happened to those members of two separate yet equally important groups? These are their stories. Among all the many men and women who shot to fame by playing a cop or crusading district attorney in the Law & Order franchise, Chris Noth was the first. Introduced in the pilot episode of the original series, Noth was Law & Order's first junior detective, the tough, swaggering Mike Logan. Despite the success of the show and the popularity of Noth's character, Logan was written out in 1995, forcibly transferred to a Staten Island unit after he punched a politician who was on trial for murder.
Turn the other cheek. You believe in that?
Yeah, twice a year, Christmas and Easter in church.
In reality, the producers let Noth go after 5 seasons. The reason? Money. Noth's contract was up for renegotiation, and he would have been entitled to a major salary bump if he were to stay on. According to producer Dick Wolf, that raise was impossible to grant. Maybe. But according to what Dolores Robinson, head of Noth's management team, said at the time, he's really sorry that they couldn't get it together, but he's had 5 great years, and his feeling is that it's time to move on. Noth did indeed go on to success on TV shows like The Good Wife and Sex and the City. As the no-nonsense, straight-shooting district attorney Arthur Branch, Fred Thompson was believable as an authority figure and legal expert because he was both of those things in real life. In the 1970s, he served as counsel to U.S. senators during the investigation into President Richard Nixon's role in the Watergate break-in. And in 1977, he represented Tennessee Parole Board Chair Marie Raggianti in a wrongful termination suit after she stood up to corruption and bribery.
Somebody has to stand up to them, Fred.
In Marie, the 1985 movie about the case, Thompson played himself, the first in a string of big-shot roles in films like No Way Out, Die Hard 2, and Days of Thunder, before he took a break from acting to dabble in Tennessee politics. In 1994, Thompson was elected to fill out the remainder of an outgoing senator's term, then served another 6 years, beginning in 1996. During the final months of his term in 2002, Thompson returned to acting, joining Law & Order. The lawyer turned actor turned politician turned actor then pivoted back to politics, leaving the show in 2007 to pursue the Republican nomination for president. After a poor showing in the early primaries, Thompson dropped out of the race in 2008 and went back to acting, but his time on Law & Order was done. Thompson died in 2015. Like his co-star Fred Thompson, Law & Order cast member Michael Moriarty also left the franchise for political reasons, though Moriarty's are much more complicated than a run for office. In 1993, U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno set out to stop a trend of real-world crime she blamed on TV violence, and spoke out in favor of legislation that would limit such graphic imagery on the small screen. Reno actually met with Dick Wolf, as well as Moriarty, who'd played quiet, upstanding DA Benjamin Stone since the show's premiere in 1990.
I'm not judging you, sir. That right belongs to your conscience and 12 taxpayers.
However, Moriarty wasn't as chill as his TV counterpart. In fact, he was livid over Reno's proposals, especially as Law & Order had always depicted little violence. It had merely been cops and lawyers talking about, and never glorifying, violent acts. Moriarty attempted to counter Reno's crusade by taking out anti-Reno ads in entertainment industry publications, hoping to build a coalition of like-minded professionals. When he failed, Moriarty quit Law & Order in 1994, and, frustrated with the entire American entertainment complex, moved to Canada. Many New York actors appear on Law & Order while working for their big break on The Great White Way, but for Jesse L. Martin, Broadway led to Law & Order. In the early 90s, Martin played HIV-afflicted college professor Tom Collins in the original production of the mega-hit Rent. Then, in 1999, Martin joined Law & Order as junior detective Ed Green, replacing Benjamin Bratt's character. But 9 years and nearly 200 episodes later, Martin decided it was time to return to the theater. He told Entertainment Weekly, "I need to get back on stage before I get too scared to do it again. And with that schedule, it would be really difficult for me to ever really get to do anything like that." In 2010, he got back to Broadway in Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice, but he hasn't left TV behind. He starred as Joe West on The Flash for 9 seasons, and as of 2024, is leading his own show, The Irrational. While it eventually became a well-oiled machine, it took some time for Law & Order to work out the kinks. While the show's law component included a relatively fresh junior detective partnered with a grizzled senior detective from the get-go, the first pair didn't work out. Veteran character actor George Dzundza played Detective Max Greevy alongside Chris Noth's Mike Logan in the show's first season. At the end of that initial slate of episodes, Dzundza left because, as the show found its voice and procedural format, it strayed from his original notion of the series. He told Pop Entertainment, "As the season went on, I saw that the stories were becoming more Dragnet-like. This is not what I signed on to do, and I had to take care of my family, frankly, as well." In addition to his issues with the show, he was tired of commuting from Los Angeles to New York City to work, which is totally understandable. B.D. Wong joined Law & Order SVU in its second season as Dr. George Wong, an FBI agent/criminal profiler/forensic psychiatrist who was always good for an assist to the NYPD detectives. Wong played the role for 10 years, but in 2011, he began to branch out when SVU producers allowed him time to co-star in the pilot for a surreal psychological police drama called Awake. After SVU filmed its last episode of that season, NBC picked up Awake, with Wong as therapist Dr. Jonathan Lee as a mid-season entry in its 2011-2012 schedule. Rather than pull double duty, Wong opted to move on to Awake. Unfortunately, NBC canceled Awake after one season. Wong has returned to SVU occasionally in the years since, whenever Dr. Wong is called in to consult with the NYPD. Before he was Liz Lemon's sleazy, good-for-nothing, on-again, off-again boyfriend Dennis Duffy on 30 Rock, and the personification of mayhem in a series of popular Allstate insurance commercials, Dean Winters was a member of SVU's original cast. He appeared in the first 13 episodes as the very green SVU investigator Brian Cassidy. Halfway through that first season, however, Cassidy disappeared. It was explained that working SVU cases proved too much for the detective, and he'd transferred to the narcotics division. However, the real reason that Winters left was because he was simultaneously playing inmate Ryan O'Reilly on HBO's Oz, and he couldn't juggle both roles any longer. He explained to the AV Club, "I had to leave because I had a contract with HBO, and there was a bit of a dispute." And so, Winters returned to Oz, but he showed up on SVU in a guest star capacity several times between 2012 and 2019. Few people have played one character as long, as memorably, or on as many different series as Richard Belzer portrayed Detective John Munch. Belzer and the droll, black-clad Munch will forever be intertwined, what with appearances on Law & Order, Arrested Development, The X-Files, The Wire, and Homicide: Life on the Street, where the character originated. When Homicide ended its run in 1999, producers of the then-new Law & Order SVU imported the character, where he investigated sex crimes for 17 years. So why would SVU get rid of one of the most famous personalities in TV history? For the sake of realism.
I earned that pension with the sweat of my mind, while surrounded by intellectual insects.
On screen, Munch retired from his tireless police job, having reached the NYPD's age limit. SVU showrunner Warren Leight told Screener TV, "In the real world, which we try very hard to simulate, NYPD has mandatory retirement before your 63rd birthday. You can't have 65-year-old guys running after guys. It is a hard and fast rule." Nick Amaro, as played by Danny Pino, was a latter-day addition to Law & Order SVU, a cop with a tough guy facade that hid an overwhelming amount of empathy. He dutifully partnered up with Mariska Hargitay's Olivia Benson for 4 seasons before the actor and character moved on. When he joined the show in 2011, Pino was already a seasoned veteran of police procedurals, having had extended runs on The Shield and Cold Case. And while that experience prepared Pino for SVU, it might also be what led to his exit. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly at the time, Warren Leight explained, "Danny did 7 years of Cold Case and The Shield, and then 4 years here. Even last year, he was beginning to want to spread his wings a little." Philip Winchester joined the Dick Wolf TV universe in 2016, appearing on all 3 of the One Chicago series, Chicago PD, Chicago Justice, and Chicago Med, before moving over to the cast of SVU in 2018 as Assistant District Attorney Peter Stone. In March 2019, just after the show was renewed for a record-setting 21st season, Winchester announced on X that he wouldn't be part of the series moving forward, posting, "Sadly for me, Peter Stone and his 'the facts don't care about your feelings' attitude will not be returning." It would seem he left the show because his character's story was finished. Winchester's exit came after a harrowing plot arc in which his character made some questionable choices motivated by his personal feelings for Olivia Benson. When the 21st season of Law & Order SVU got underway in the fall of 2019, a new character was in the mix: Catriona "Cat" Tamine, a former undercover Vice Unit cop with a temper whom Benson enlists to help out the SVU. In the following season, Tamine was promoted to detective. Detective Tamine, played by Jamie Gray Hyder, was the first LGBTQ identifying officer on the show, and only the second queer recurring character on SVU in a decade. In September 2021, just before the premiere of the show's 23rd season, Hyder announced her exit from the show on Instagram, posting, "It is with a heavy heart that I confirm Kat's departure from the squad room. The decision was made above my pay grade and wouldn't have been my choice. But hey, that's showbiz for ya." The character was written off the show, and Hyder clearly wasn't happy about it. Beginning with Law & Order Season 4, Jill Hennessy's Claire Kincaid proved a skilled partner to Michael Moriarty's DA Ben Stone, followed by Sam Watterson's Jack McCoy. But by Season 6, Hennessy appeared to be experiencing the same sort of burnout that many of the actors who replaced her ran into. The character had essentially grown stale and repetitive, and Hennessy worried about being typecast in the future. In 2006, she told The Morning Call, "It is the one part that is the most limited, and that's why you've seen such a revolving door with that character in particular. There's just not any way to write it with more facets." Claire exited the series in dramatic fashion in the final episode of Season 6. While escorting Detective Lenny Briscoe from a bar, she's killed by a drunk driver. Hennessy's concerns over being typecast appear to have gone unfounded, as she's continued to work steadily on TV and in features, playing the lead in the 2000s series Crossing Jordan, plus appearances on City on a Hill, Yellowstone, and in the Spider-Man universe film Madam Web. Following Claire Kincaid's shocking death, former defense attorney Jamie Ross assumed the role of Assistant District Attorney in Law & Order Season 7. Played by former Bond girl Carey Lowell, Ross's tenure as a main character was short-lived. An ugly custody battle with her husband prompted her to leave the DA's office at the end of Season 8. However, she returned to the franchise on several occasions, including a 2-episode stint on the short-lived Law & Order Trial by Jury, which saw her promoted to judge, and later on the rebooted Law & Order when she's linked to the murder of one of her former clients. Lowell's reason for leaving the franchise echoed her characters. She also wanted to spend more time with her daughter, Hannah Dunn, an actor in her own right who's appeared in series like Mozart in the Jungle. Formerly married to actors Griffin Dunn and Richard Gere, Lowell continues to act, most notably in episodes of Bull and Blue Bloods. She also oversees her own ceramics company. Echoing Jill Hennessy's observation that the ADA position on Law & Order is a somewhat rote character are Angie Harmon, who played Abby Carmichael from Seasons 9 to 11, and Elisabeth Röhm, who played Serena Sutherland in Seasons 12 through 15. In separate interviews, both actors said they felt their roles had become stale. As Harmon put it to Cinema Confidential, "There has to become a point where I can't constantly be saying to Jack McCoy, 'Why don't we do this?' with the response of, 'No, you idiot.'" Harmon cited her desire to work in movies as another reason for her departure. Röhm also expressed a need to expand her creative horizons, telling Today, "I didn't have anything else that I could offer this character." In Röhm's case, Wolf allowed her to craft her own departure, which saw Sutherland come out as gay shortly before she was dismissed by DA Arthur Branch. In a 2022 interview with Rap, Röhm said, "It was exciting to have them acknowledge, for me, things I'd been playing secretly as a character throughout the years because it was so personal." One of the biggest breakout stars in the history of Law & Order and its many successful spin-offs is Benjamin Bratt.
The East 60s is a very small world.
So we're told. We're not allowed above 42nd Street.
After playing Detective Ray Curtis, a faltering family man with a tendency to lose his temper on suspects, Bratt ended his 4-year tenure on the show in 1999, moving on to a movie career full of commercial and critical hits, such as Miss Congeniality, Traffic, Pinheiro, Despicable Me 2, Coco, and Doctor Strange. Shortly after his departure, Bratt became one of only 5 regular Law & Order cast members to earn an Emmy nomination. So why did he leave when he had a good thing going? In a statement published in the New York Post, Bratt said, "After 4 years, I felt like it was time to get back home to my family." Understandable, except Bratt hadn't yet started a family when he said that. He married actor Talisa Soto in 2002, and they had their first kid together later that same year. In other words, Bratt's real reason for leaving the small screen probably had more to do with showing up on the big screen. One of the longest-running characters on Law & Order, streetwise detective Lenny Briscoe, made his debut in Season 3 and remained on duty for 12 seasons, while also turning up on episodes of SVU, Criminal Intent, Trial by Jury, and even in crossovers with Homicide: Life on the Street. Briscoe's world-weary persona and cagey crime-solving skills were beloved by audiences. And Jerry Orbach's turn as Briscoe earned him an Emmy nomination, several Screen Actors Guild nominations, and living landmark status, along with Sam Waterston's Jack McCoy from the New York Landmarks Conservancy. Orbach, who was an acclaimed Broadway star and character actor prior to his Law & Order tenure, was diagnosed with prostate cancer in 1994. He underwent treatment for the next decade before ultimately retiring from Law & Order in 2004. However, he continued to play Briscoe in a supporting capacity on Trial by Jury. He filmed 2 episodes of the series before dying of prostate cancer at the age of 69 on December 28, 2004. Jerry Orbach's Lenny Briscoe was brought into the 27th Precinct to replace Paul Sorvino, who played Sergeant Phil Soretta in Seasons 2 and 3. But Sorvino only lasted 2 seasons before exiting after Season 3's Prince of Darkness, in which he's shot by a gun dealer. Left permanently injured by the shooting, Soretta makes a final appearance on the following episode before his transfer to an administrative position at another precinct. In a 1992 interview with the Orlando Sentinel, Sorvino stated that his departure from the series was prompted by a desire to pursue a singing career. He subsequently appeared with the New York City Opera and various theater companies across the United States. Sorvino, whose film career included roles in Goodfellas and Nixon, died of natural causes at the age of 83 on July 25, 2022. Jesse L. Martin ended his 9-season run on Law & Order with the Season 18 episode Burn Card, which saw his character, Detective Ed Green, leave the 27th Precinct after being indicted in a shooting case.
No one's saying internal affairs shouldn't exist, Detective, but Ed Green?
His replacement, Detective Kevin Bernard, played by Anthony Anderson, was actually one of the internal affairs officers that investigated Green. Bernard became Detective Cyrus Lupo's partner for the next 2.5 seasons, until NBC initially pulled the plug on Law & Order in 2010. When the network revived the series, Anderson returned as Bernard, this time paired with Jeffrey Donovan's Detective Frank Cosgrove. However, Anderson's return to the series was short-lived. He'd signed a single-season contract, and his final appearance came with the Season 21 finale, Black and Blue. Anderson cited his desire to work on his own projects in a 2022 interview with Entertainment Tonight, stating, "I wanted to go off and create more shows like Blackish, create things that I have ownership in, and do something a little bit different." Though usually cited as one of the 6 original cast members of Law & Order, Emmy-nominated actor Stephen Hill's Adam Schiff wasn't the first New York District Attorney on the series. Roy Finnis played DA Alfred Wentworth in the 1988 pilot episode, but was contractually obligated to another program when Law & Order went into production. Wolf then brought Hill on board to play Schiff. The actor would remain with the series until his departure in Season 10. At the time, he was the last original cast member still standing.
Started with a killing, ending with an execution. You got what you wanted. Take the rest of the week off.
Hill was 78 years old when Season 10 concluded and decided to retire from acting. According to Dick Wolf, exhaustion was Hill's primary reason for stepping away from the series, along with the weekly commute from New York's suburbs to filming locations in Manhattan. Hill died of cancer at the age of 94 on August 23, 2016. The end of Law & Order Season 15 saw yet another changing of the guard in the DA's office, when Arthur Branch fired ADA Serena Sutherland and replaced her with Alexandra Borgia, played by Annie Parisse. Though smart, professional, and dogged in her pursuit of justice, Borgia's tenure ran for just 33 episodes, the shortest of any assistant DA on the series. In the Season 16 finale, Borgia was kidnapped by a crew of home invaders impersonating DEA agents. She was later found killed in an abandoned car. In an interview with Newsday, Parisse explained that she'd asked to leave the show in order to pursue new roles, saying, "I like the adventure of going from job to job to job." While many viewers found her character's demise gruesome, she enjoyed the chance to shoot an intense emotional scene, sharing, "People always tell me, that was terrible what they did to you. I try to comfort them by telling them I had a really good time doing it." In 2000, when Stephen Hill retired from his 10-season run as DA Adam Schiff, Law & Order producers hired an equally formidable actor to take his place. Two-time Oscar winner Dianne Wiest joined the cast as interim DA Nora Lewin in the first episode of Season 11 and presided over New York County cases for the next 2 seasons. During that period, Lewin appeared in 2 episodes of SVU and managed a single turn on Criminal Intent, but Wiest departed at the end of Season 12, and according to her, the decision was her own. In a 2016 interview with the Kansas City Star, she said she was unhappy with her performance on the series, confessing, "It was a great show, but not the type of thing I'm any good at. I was just totally miserable and asked to leave, and they were happy to get rid of me." Golden Globe-nominated actor Adam Beach guest starred as Detective Chester Lake on 2 Season 8 episodes of SVU before joining the cast in Season 9. Chester partnered with Finn Tutuola after Detective John Munch was promoted to sergeant. He proved to be a smart cop, but with a complicated secret life. A member of the Vidocq Society, a real-life group of investigators who parlay their expertise into solving cold cases, he got mixed up in a sexual assault case involving another officer, as well as a murder, which led to his departure at the end of Season 9. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Beach had signed a 1-year contract to play Chester, and both he and Dick Wolf decided against re-upping for a second season. The in-demand character actor soon moved on to steady work in features, including Suicide Squad and The Power of the Dog, and episodic TV like Nancy Drew. Few exits from the Law & Order universe have left viewers as surprised as Kelli Giddish's 2022 departure from SVU. Giddish, who played Detective Amanda Rollins on the drama, announced that year she would be stepping down from the series after 12 seasons.
When I told you that I didn't want you to die, I lied.
Season 24's mid-season finale, And a Trauma in a Pear Tree, is marked by Rollins' marriage to Assistant DA Sonny Parisse and a new teaching job at Fordham University. Giddish made public that she was leaving SVU prior to the launch of Season 24 with a fairly sunny statement that expressed her appreciation for her time on the show. While she gave no concrete reason for her departure, coverage in Variety noted that the decision was based on several factors, including a decision made by higher-ups at Wolf Entertainment and salary negotiations that appeared to have run aground. The trade publication also claimed that the series star and executive producer, Mariska Hargitay, had pushed to keep the actor on board, but failed to influence the final decision. Though nearly all of the series in the Law & Order franchise have experienced some degree of cast turnover, Criminal Intent appears to have undergone the most lineup changes in the shortest amount of time. During its 10-season run on NBC and the USA Network between 2001 and 2011, every single series regular departed the show for good or for extended periods of time. Even star Catherine Irby, who as Detective Alexandra Ames remained the sole original cast member through the whole series run, is absent for much of seasons 3 and 9. When Ames and partner Robert Gorin, played by actor Vincent D'Onofrio, left the show in Season 9, they were replaced by Jeff Goldblum and Saffron Burrows as Detective Zach Nichols and Serena Stevens, respectively. But Goldblum, who began as a replacement for the departing Chris Noth in Season 8, apparently got cold feet about his new assignment. He announced his departure from Criminal Intent at the end of Season 9, with his representation telling Variety that he left due to the uncertainty over the show's future. At the time of his announcement in the late summer of 2010, the show's renewal was still unconfirmed by executives at its new home at the USA Network. When the show did return for its 10th and final season, both D'Onofrio and Irby were back as Gorin and Ames.